Thank you, Sophia. Wonderful presentation. There's a whole lot of stuff for us to think. There's a whole lot that it adds to everybody. It just brought up many issues to my mind, so I was really excited with all that. And now I would like to invite Sophia, Jesper, and Anders so that we start a debate, a question and answer session. I'd like you who are watching us to please share your questions or your comments through our chat feature so we can forward that to them and so we can go to the wrap-up session of this first day of our talks. I think I will start by sharing some thoughts about those issues. I was really excited, really encouraged by all I've seen, and I was very happy. I felt very fortunate to listen to those issues which are so essential and so simple, like food. Food is something that we have every day. There's not a single person on the planet that does not take food, and the quality of food has to be a discussion of collective urban life at the first level. Sophia shared this question in the latter part of her talk, where she was looking for discovering Brazilians' life based on food, something like that. And she would like to investigate, to delve into that, to learn more about the quantity and the possibilities of this wealth of possibilities we have in Rio de Janeiro. So I'm obviously not going to dare to answer that question, not even try, but I will actually offer that for everybody's thoughts and comments based on her statement. So I'm actually going to provide more of a thought than a question, which is, this is very interesting. The structure that Sophia shared with us concerning data collection, concerning this observation, being able to look and observe, trying to investigate into those behaviors, and from that point, perhaps develop strategies or solutions, so on and so forth. What crossed my mind while I was listening to her, I do not know whether I'm right or wrong, and there's nothing to do with that. It's just thoughts. We usually base ourselves on principles that are connected to this type of, how shall I put it? The primitive hunter-gatherers, the nomad people that there are two potential perspectives to the process between citizens and foods. The first view would be this hunter-gatherer, a nomad individual, and an allegory, and a Eastern Christian figure starts from Adam and Eve, with the tree of fruits, and then there's the desire. And in modern terms, we could speak about McDonald's and this huge ham, you're driving along the road, and that attracts you to consumption. And you can extrapolate that. They sell out in China and so on and so forth. All of the traveling peddlers throughout history. But that has me thinking about this eroticization of landscapes that encourages the desire to consume, in this case for food, but it happens for other things. So the landscape is eroticized in order to encourage consumption. On a more junk food kind of line, be it better or be it worse, that will vary according to situations and to different cultures. But as a counterpoint to that, one of the possibilities that came through Sophia's talk, and I thought it was very interesting, which is these possibilities of having some social clusters where certain needs are brought together, and this view of the more underprivileged regions where there's less possibility for gatherings, and at the other extreme, the possibility of actually designing the space. And the primitive idea would be those wizards around a cauldron, or aborigines who gathered together and put their warriors they had to do anthropophagy, meaning to feed on that. What I mean actually is that this vision is not focused on an external desire brought to you by the landscape, but the landscape, this gathering of people, based on this gathering, that leads to a congregation of people based on food. In modern terms, we have fire meetings, fire gatherings. We see the churrasco, the Brazilian barbecue that is developed on those houses, the slabs above those houses, and people gather on the countryside for that experience. So I'd like to pose this question to Sophia first, but then I'd like to extend that question to Jesper, because the feeling I have is that we do not design very much for that second option, the space that actually enables for human clusters based on food. Food is the essence of culture. Food could be dance, for instance, as well. It obviously talks about organic food full of vitamins and proteins, but we're talking about the possibility of gathering, starting from the food rather from the space where a desire for the food is encouraged. So I'd like to hear it from you. At Dell, since you're connected with life, human life, and connections, how can we think, how can we elaborate on these possibilities? Space for clusters and collective food and cultural food.
Great, thank you so much for that question. It's something that we think a lot
on your
about.
sound,
I hope you
Sophia.
can hear me all right.
Yes, without sound.
Oh.
There's no sound.
I can hear you fine, Sophia. Can you?
Oh, okay. So maybe look, you just throw it into our audio and vMix. No, I'm not hearing it.
As I said, I'd like to actually pose that question to our guests. And in our experience in Rio Comprido, a space we developed, and Jesper was ahead of that movement, it revolved around this cluster of people, starting from food and having the local habits, meaning people who prepare the food. In the district, there was Barbara, who was preparing the local soups, various kinds of foods. Anna was also preparing food of a somewhat sophisticated gastronomy, but using those food plants that we find in public spaces. And that involved the participation of people who are living out in the streets, also with academics, everybody getting together around this very strong moment and very beautiful moment. So I'd like to have Jesper's thoughts on that, based on the Foodscapes experience, local Vida Local experiences, the relevance they.
So can you hear me? Yes. Okay. Great.
Yeah. Now it's good.
Great. So I should start by saying that food to me is part of the cultural term that I'm working with, because food is also bringing experiences that brings people together, and this is how I understand culture as a driver of building up communities. However, I'm not an expert into these kind of food products. I merely see food as a way also of engaging people. And in that context, I would say that with our project in Rio Comprido, food was a great way also of bringing people together, serving them with options of healthy food that could also motivate them to eat better and more healthy, and furthermore, meet people that were also engaged in the local community. So you could say that the foodscape kind of mythology is also a framework that can be used to mobilize the different community stakeholders in order to bring out new solutions to these urban spaces that we were also working with in Rio Completo. And for me, this gives an option also to involve other professions. So this is where I think the potential of these community building projects really can be scaled up when you not only focus on one kind of profession as food is, but also involve other stakeholders. Because to have these multidisciplinary processes really can enable you to innovate on how you can interact in urban spaces. And this is what we also try to do in the project in Rio Completo.
Wonderful, wonderful, Jesper. Sophia, do we have your audio now?
Can you hear
Can
me?
you hear me?
I'm not hearing you. Oh yeah, come back. You were there for a minute and now it was out again.
It was, okay, if I have the English translation turned on, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Now I'm hearing
The
you.
English translator can hear you, Sophia. The English translator can hear you. I don't know about the others.
Okay, I
Because
think
we're
it
in
seems
different
that they're
channels.
able to as well. I see nodding, so
We can hear you.
I guess, you know, what we think when it comes to understanding behavior and how people use, you know, the city around them, if organizations and big, large companies can design for unhealthy behavior, that we can also find a way to design for healthy behavior. And you know, I think the opening monologue that you were giving was quite interesting when thinking about, you know, us as Homo sapiens. We are creatures of habit and creatures in comfort. And, you know, finding community, like Jesper is talking about, finding ways to connect to each other. Food is a wonderful catalyst for that. But I do think, you know, this multi-stakeholder approach that you're mentioning is really important to finding those links and those kind of elements of a specific neighborhood or a specific culture that people really look towards to make that community connection. You know, what that connection might be in Rio is going to be something different than Copenhagen. And that's why local stakeholders and local community members and people embedded in a culture and a society is so important to finding what those triggers might be. And then it takes, you know, that kind of cultural translation, I guess you could call it, to think, then how do we use design to help create, I guess, a strong platform for that connection to happen on? And, you know, what we found in Bogota, which was quite interesting after doing all of this research, the kind of fun, interesting, engaging pilots that we were designing ended up being something that the health secretariat was already kind of working with, but just in a different way. And so we were able to provide a new platform and kind of weigh a new lens or angle to look at, you know, these projects that they were running and think, how do you engage the community and get them embedded even more in the projects that the health secretariat was running? So I think it's, you know, an interesting lens in order to look at a lot of these programs that deal with health, actually, and food as that kind of main catalyst. But yeah, I guess that's some of my thoughts there about the role that kind of design and bringing communities together can play.
Maybe if I can add to that, I think that's essential for these projects for creating sustainable solutions, is to actually test out or map the local resources and bring that up to the planning level, because what you, Sophia, showed brilliantly with your presentation is that the process where you create the built infrastructure as you know, with the experience of the urban life that is lived, the process traditionally is the opposite. So what you do and what we try to do also with Vida Local RIO is to map out how do people live their lives, test out what kind of activities meet the needs and desires of the local community, and then scale it up to a level where the municipality can you know, adapt these kind of experiences and bring them to other places. But I do think the key point here is to create the strong connection between the municipal level, the political level, and the community level. And this is what we don't see that many thriving examples of yet. I think this is where I do think that the work we do can motivate more municipalities to work in a sustainable way.
Wonderful. Maybe I can jump in here. For me, it's very special to have you three together. We have been working on these initiatives since 2019 and early 20, and it's been developing a lot. And I think as Sophia and I were just chatting quickly during your presentation, yes, but there's a lot of synergy presence. We are actually working all this time with that synergy at the Danish Cultural Institute, constructing also for us to make this synergy grow and to create also interventions in São Paulo, for example, next year. Now all the physical interventions, of course, in any city in Brazil would be for 2022, but it's important to say that is on the table and it's in development, and we are constructing along and fundraising and all these things. So there's a lot of it's not just like a wow, that would be great, but we are actually we are going forward, and the synergy is very very strong. For example, obviously, we do foodscape survey in Rio Comprido, and we could bring this combination with us out in other cities as well. So we are very. I'm very excited with this, and I think also food culture being one of the central areas of the institute. We say that what we do here in Brazil in the Danish Cultural Institute is that we work with the cultural dimension of the transformation to a sustainable world, and we have some cross-cutting values that are sustainability and diversity. And I think and we do this in three areas: architecture and urbanism, and food culture, and audiovisual. And I think we have a lot here that works, and that works together, especially like Foodscape and Vida Local. It's a total fusion that is very very potent and rich, and we are looking very much forward to keep on constructing and developing this and bringing you over here. So Guto, did we get some questions in from somewhere?
Yes, we have a couple of questions that I am going to be sharing them as a sequence because they are actually interconnected. First one asked by Vania Albuquerque. She's asking about the experience. Now, this experience shared by Sophia, did it happen only in Bogota? And the second one by Nubia Suarez. Now, why were those specific cities chosen? And how did you ever get to them rather than to other cities? Sophie?
Yes, sorry. So the reason that we were working in Bogota, Houston, and Philadelphia this time around is because we have a partnership with Cities Changing Diabetes. They have a network across 36 cities around the world to find different, quite innovative solutions to tackling obesity and diabetes. And they chose these 3 cities because they're all cities that they've been working for quite some time. And they wanted this survey to inform their local partners on how they can continue to build up a robust program to continue to tackle obesity and diabetes. We've also done 2 similar projects in London and in Copenhagen. And for all of these 5 cities that we've been working, the local partners have been different. As I mentioned, we had worked with the city, with the health secretariat, and in Copenhagen, we'd also worked with the municipality. But in the other cities, it's been tied to NGOs and more philanthropic organizations. So I think it's also quite interesting how different these projects can be based on who the anchor local partner is and their relationship to the community. When we've been working with local NGOs, the work has actually gone much smoother because they're already embedded with local people. They have a great network of locals that they can bring in to provide their insights and local stories and lived experience. And it's a different situation when we're working with the local municipalities because they're actually not as tied to the local community as Jesper was mentioning. So I think these experiences have provided some different insights to us on the kind of work that needs to happen when working with the city in comparison to the local NGOs. Yeah.
Can I also ask a question? Sophia, yes, so
of course you can.
The mapping you have done and the prototype methodology you have used, has this also affected some anchoring, some local ownership, so that the experience you've had along the process is being continued to work with? And I'm asking because as working as architects, I guess you are also looking at the built environment, and it does take some investment that the municipality or the cities should be able to kind of find in order to create the scaled up solutions. But can you see that these prototypes have already worked and create some change in the communities that you have worked in?
That's a great question. So we've found that I guess it depends, the different projects, it depends on the results and the longevity. When in the projects where we have had members of the city embedded in the project and they have learned the methodology and been part of the kind of prototypes, we see a much greater chance of sustainability of the projects than when we are left to our own devices. And then we end up getting maybe local students to do a lot of the surveying and mapping, and therefore the longevity of the project, while we're doing great capacity building for the students and their knowledge and how to do mapping like this, the strength of the project doesn't live on as much because members of the city weren't involved in learning the methodology themselves. In Philadelphia, actually, we with the local food bank that we had done the project with, they were part of the entire process. They did the data collection, they analyzed the mapping with us, and they co-created the prototype solutions. And now every single prototype that came out of that project is embedded in their organization. And there we see the greatest success because they were part of the process in a much more holistic way than many of the other projects. And unfortunately, often it comes down to funding and how much funding there is to, get local anchored partners throughout the whole process, and that it relies less heavily on us carrying it out, but that we're able to pass on the tools and methods to someone else in the city or in the local organization. I hope that answers your question. Yeah, but I guess it just depends a little bit.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Sophia. And thank you, Jesper, for the question and for the answer, the analysis. So we here in Brazil and in Rio de Janeiro, we are undergoing a constant process, and it's almost like a discontinuity of the public policies. And what I see that both processes, both projects brought about is the strengthening of the communities as of the local agents, local actors that allow for the maintenance of such structures, and that allows for a continuous dialogue and a claiming from the public, from the government, the continuity. So therefore, it's not a government plan, it's something that's developed from the civil society, from the commons. So in both approaches, it seems to me that this is the core of the issue. I don't know if you agree with that. I'd like to listen to you about it, please.
Yes, yes, I definitely agree. I think the basis for these projects is based in the commons and in the kind of collective civil society, and that's where the strength of the projects come from. It is that triangle that I had showed in the project, and I think also the diagram, just a different diagram that Jesper had showed with the circles of the strength of the kind of bottom-up approach leading to a sustainable long-term solution. So I think that's really where the strength of these projects lies, in this bottom-up approach. I suppose you would agree, Jesper.
Sure, I agree, and to elaborate a bit about, I would say that working in these processes, you should view expertise in different ways, because there's different types of expertise that is needed to create these successful projects. So you need to engage or involve the different key stakeholders very early in the processes, and view their expertise as something that is so valuable for these projects to involve. And it's said in another way, the planners of the municipality or the architects have their expertise, but the community organizations and civilians living in this area are also experts in their different ways. So in order to respect and acknowledge the different expertise, you need to create also different levels of engagement, because you cannot expect the civilians to take part in these complex urban planning projects and long-term planning, and you can maybe not in the same hand expect the civilians to, or the architects or planners to take part in the everyday life. But this is where I find culture as a great way of connecting these different levels of expertise, where you can create a common platform and prototype and experiment with solutions where all the different types of expertise are acknowledged.
Maybe maybe I can add to that as well, because I think that's it's interesting where our processes diverge a little bit, and that for us, one of the reasons that we do data collection through the form of observation of this public life and of the lived experience is that sometimes people don't necessarily, civilians, as you mentioned, citizens, they don't necessarily have the language to express need. And that's where observation becomes very important for design and for architecture, is that if we observe the lived experience and have a strong method in order to do so, we can then uncover some of these stories that people may not be able to articulate themselves. And often, as you mentioned, there's not enough time in a project to get a part of that lived experience and that local life and culture enough to really understand it and design for it. So I think the observation as well, and just as another form of engagement, is also an important factor for us.
Great comments that really engages even more in the discussion. Now I'm going to bring a question from Fernando. I think it's difficult to answer, but let's go for it. It's addressed to Sophia, but the comment of Jesper is very welcome in this question. Fernando asks, how are you going to fight the gastronomy of overconsumption in gentrified megalopolis with good and healthy food or eating habits? Let me rephrase it. How can we face and fight the structure of such hyperconsumption gastronomy, bringing in the good healthy eating habits as opposed to that? Sophia would like to start.
Yeah, sure. So I guess what we would typically like to think is that the healthy meal should be the easiest meal, and this kind of ease of access is a place to start. And access can come in the many forms, whether it's price or proximity to transportation, common transportation routes, or to where people live. Access is the key for us. And, there are many routes, and I think it's interesting that we're having this conversation around culture and, the role that culture plays, that sometimes having people in society who, many local people look up to, for example, showing that healthy food isn't necessarily a salad for rabbits, but can be a delicious thing that can be enjoyed by anybody, and really showing the kind of value and, I guess, cultural capital that good, healthy, nutritious food can have. But of course, with this angle that ease is the most important thing. In Copenhagen, where we live, most people use the bicycle to get where they need to go. Not because the bicycle is the sexiest form of mode of transportation, but it gets you where you need to go the fastest. And so we really see that food can have something similar, that the easiest meal should be the healthiest meal. And that, to me, is a great place to start.
And if I should just comment, I, as I said before, I'm not an expert in food, but I do think it's not enough to offer the right alternative. You should also create the right narrative around it. Some work in a way with the identity of food and the area, so that you can understand yourself also as one who eats healthy, and this can also be worked with on a community level. So I think this should go hand in hand with actually changing the offers of food that you serve.
Very good. Thank you very much. So this issue of accessing, I think it's a key word. This final comment based on this question makes it very clear that the fact that we are here speaking in diverse languages, speaking on these very key themes for the whole world, broadening this debate that is such an urgent debate, the access to food, the access to food, possibilities of food, cultural food, gastronomic food, for sure is the key. I believe that we have to start from giving access to such possibilities, people having access to all that. So wonderful. Thank you very much. I think we are now leading to our conclusion. I want to thank very much your presence, and I'd like to listen from you like a final word, like a message, so that not in order for us to interrupt, but so that we can continue the dialogue in future moments. This is a very relevant, and we are just starting. Would you like to start, Jesper? Do you have something to tell us?
As always, it has been so inspiring to have a dialogue between these very different contexts that we are living in. And as you say, Guto, there's so much insight, so much learning that can be taken into consideration, not only in our short-term work with the UIA project in Rio in 2021, but also in the longer future. So I would definitely hope that this conversation can continue not only for the next year, but also towards 2023, where I know that the Danish Art Council and the Danish Cultural Institute and the UIA in Copenhagen is very keen on taking all the experiences and the dialogue we are having here and see how that can be presented in 2023. And I will for sure welcome you with open arms and a lot of great food in 2023 when you join us at the UIA Congress there.
Yes, and to follow, I would like to thank Anders actually for the invitation to speak. You know, we started talking over a year ago about attending UIA in 2020 in Rio, and the activities that we would get to do with local communities and schools. And it was a real shame that we weren't able to do that, but I'm glad that we were able to find a digital compromise, at least for now. But I am thankful for the opportunity to bring this concept around studying foodscapes and the importance of collecting evidence and data on food environments, and using that data to inform long-term decision-making, as well as very local, immediate interventions in neighborhoods. I think if we only look towards the policy level, we get a bit stressed out. And I think bringing us back down to the local level and to the local community, and really think, how can we invite one more person to a healthier meal, or invite one more person to a healthier food environment is a great place to start. And I'm thankful for the opportunity to get to share this with you. And I hope that we can do a foodscape study of our own in Rio. Yeah, so thank you all for having me.
Thank you so much, Sophia and Guto. It's been a very enlightening day, I think, for me certainly, and a lot of to see this synergy like unfolding is really awesome. And I need also to say that I'm quite excited with our online platform, in the Commons and Communities platform, and that already in our first large meeting with a lot of local local partners, and this thing that is being constructed for the local Brazilian page. It has a lot to do with all these things that we are talking about. There's a lot of talk about food culture, a lot of initiatives that I am learning about and discovering together with Guto related to this platform. Lots of community initiatives that are completely amazing, that we are looking very much forward to present to the world on the Commons and Communities platform, and also to be able to use in our construction of the future interventions of foodscapes in Brazil and Vida Local in Brazil. So I really hope that we, with this this event, this online event that is what we're able to do, have planted a little bit of a seed, and it's going to be very exciting to see how that will sprout, not only between Brazil and Denmark, between the Congress of Rio and the World Congress and World Capital of Architecture in 2023 in Copenhagen, but also it will also pass in China, Russia, Turkey, the Baltic states. Of course, this is just like a seed for inspiration, but I think we will have a very, very exciting process ahead of us, and hopefully we will arrive with a new multimedia Commons and Communities exposition with all these or the highlights of these local editions from around the world, to be able to present this at the UIA Congress in 2023 in Copenhagen. So thank you all very much for today. It's been great, and I'll see you all hopefully tomorrow for our second day. Starts at 9 a.m. Brazilian time, which is 2 p.m. Danish European time. So thank you so much, and see you tomorrow.